Shame is not an emotion. It is a social execution. When a rival attempts to shame you in the public square, do not mistake it for a simple insult. They are attempting to murder your identity. You know the visceral sensation, the capillaries in your neck dilate, the heat rises, the room falls into a suffocating silence. You feel your stature shrinking while they expand into giants. Your biology, specifically the amygdala, screams at you to survive. It demands you explain, fight back, or apologize. But this instinct is a relic of a primitive age. In the ancient world, ostracism meant death. To be shamed was to be cast out of the tribe, to freeze or starve. Your body is reacting to a ghost threat. And here is the brutal truth that separates the sovereign from the slave. The moment you react, you die. By defending yourself, you validate their authority to judge you. You step into the witness box of a trial they constructed. You're dancing to their music. To survive the modern hierarchy, you must override this evolutionary defect. You must realize that their words are not a verdict, but a test of your reality. The first step to dismantling a chimera is to realize that their attack has absolutely nothing to do with you. It is a confession. Shame is never a judgment of the target. It is a projection of the archer. In the halls of power, a truly dominant sovereign does not need to make others feel small. Their stature is self-evident. Only the desperate, the bored, and the empty feel the need to use your pain as fuel to ignite their own dimming light. Nietzsche identified this as resentment, the toxic malice of the slave who despises the master simply for existing. When they ask, "Why are you wearing that?" or "Did you really just say that?" they are revealing a structural crack in their own ego. They view you as a threat that must be neutralized or a mirror that reflects their own inadequacy. Alfred Adler, the psychologist of power, would diagnose this as a classic compensation for inferiority. They are not attacking you. They are trying to silence their own internal screaming. Once you see their aggression, not as a verdict on your value, but as a clinical symptom of their weakness, the heat on your neck vanishes. You stop being the victim. You become the pathologist. You become the observer. And in any social hierarchy, the observer is the most dangerous person in the room. Let's discuss the void. The average mind cannot tolerate silence. When an insult lands, a vacuum rips open the conversation. Humans are social creatures. We are programmed to fill that vacuum with nervous laughter, justifications, or noise. We rush to close the gap because the gap feels dangerous. But for the Machiavellian strategist, the gap is not a danger. It is a weapon. The most devastating response to humiliation is wu-wei action through non-action. You do absolutely nothing. Not the nothing of a coward paralyzed by fear, but the nothing of a predator deciding if the prey is worth the calories. Here is the technique. They deliver the insult. You do not blink. You do not smile. You do not frown. You go completely still. You look them directly in the eyes with a dead star gaze, flat, bored, almost clinical. You count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. In those 3 seconds, the dynamic of the room shifts tectonically. The audience waits for your reaction. When it doesn't come, they look back at the attacker. The attacker expects resistance. When they hit nothing but air, they stumble. They wonder, did he hear me? Is he crazy? The silence stretches and becomes heavy, but it is their heaviness, not yours. You have refused to pick up the burden they threw, so it falls at their feet. By doing nothing, you force them to sit in the ugliness of what they just did, turning the volume up on their disrespect, until it deafens them. Defense is the death rattle of the guilty. If I accuse you of theft and you scream, "I am not a thief," you have just linked your identity to the crime in the minds of the audience. You are debating your innocence, and kings do not debate with peasants. Instead, employ psychological judo. Do not treat their insult as a fact. Treat it as a curious behavioral anomaly. You analyze them like a clinician observing a patient in a psych ward who has just soiled themselves. You don't get angry at the patient. You get curious. When they attack you, pause, tilt your head, and ask with devastating calm, "Are you okay?" or "That was a weird thing to say out loud." In transactional analysis, this forces a violent shift in the social game. They are attempting to play the critical parent scolding a naughty child. By asking if they are stable, you seize the role of the adult dealing with a hysterical child. You flip the microscope. Suddenly, they are the ones under the light stammering to explain their outburst. There is a variation of this that is even more savage, the path of Diogenes. The ancient cynic philosopher lived with such radical shamelessness that no insult could stick to him. When they attack a flaw, you do not hide it. You own it with arrogance. "You're so arrogant," they sneer. You smile and say, "I know, it's my best quality." This is the agree and amplify technique. You take the mud they throw and wear it like war paint. When you agree with the insult, you disarm the weapon. If you're not ashamed of yourself, you become Teflon. The mud slides off and the person throwing it is left with nothing but dirty hands. Shame is a performance art. The attacker does not care about you. They care about the gallery. They are the desperate actor on stage praying for applause, hoping the crowd will join them in stoning you. Most victims make the fatal error of trying to win over the attacker or pleading for sympathy. This is biological suicide. Human beings possess a harsh reptilian instinct. We despise victims. René Girard identified this as the scapegoat mechanism. The mob coalesces around a victim to purge its own tension. If you look weak, you trigger their disgust. If you look stable, you trigger their awe. People worship control. When you remain granite while another man screams, the crowd instinctively shifts to your side. Not out of kindness, but out of survival. You look like the leader. They look like the liability. You can weaponize this dynamic with the triangulation stare. When the insult lands, do not look at the attacker. Look at a third party in the group. Lock eyes for a split second and offer a tiny, subtle smirk. A look that says, "Can you believe this clown?" You share a secret joke with the audience at the attacker's expense. You are signaling to the tribe that this person is not a threat, but a court jester. Suddenly, the attacker is ostracized. They are dancing for validation, and nobody is clapping. By bonding with the crowd through nonverbal mockery, you isolate the shamer. You trigger the crowd's mimetic desire to copy your disdain. You have stolen their social capital without speaking a word. Sometimes the best way to destroy a man is not to kill him, but to turn him into a ghost. There are bottom feeders who thrive on conflict. If you fight them, they win. If you play judo, they enjoy the game. For these energy vampires, you deploy the nuclear option. You delete them from the simulation. You do not look away in anger. You look through them as if they were glass. You continue your conversation with another, as if a breeze just blew through the window. The Romans called this Damnatio Memoriae, condemnation of memory. When a traitor was executed, his name was chiseled off every monument. He was not just dead, he never existed. This is not the silent treatment. The silent treatment is an emotional tantrum that screams, "I am hurt." This is active non-existence. It says, "You are so beneath my notice that my brain does not register you as a biological entity." William James, the father of psychology, noted that the cruelest torture would be to remain unseen by one's peers. Being ignored triggers the same neural pathways as physical pain. Attack acknowledges existence. Indifference denies it. Let them escalate. Let them scream. The louder they get while you remain oblivious, the crazier they look. They burn themselves alive in the fire of their own desperation while you sip your coffee unbothered. It is the dominance of the mountain over the ant. Tactics are useless if your soul is glass. You can master the stare, the silence, and the verbal judo, but if you are trembling inside, they will smell it. Micro-expressions never lie. To truly dismantle a shamer, you must destroy the part of you that feels shame. You must build an internal citadel. Why does their insult sting? It stings because you have handed the keys to your self-worth to a stranger. You are allowing an outsider, someone who does not know your history, your struggles, or your potential to audit your value. Machiavelli defined virtù not as moral goodness, but as prowess, the raw capability to impose one's will on fortune. A man of virtù relies on his own internal ledger. If you know you are a lion and a mouse calls you a mouse, it is not painful. It is comedy. The lion does not get offended. The lion knows what he is. To reach this state of concrete self-knowledge, you must perform shadow work. You must face the rot you are ashamed of. Your past, your bank account, your loneliness. Bring it into the light. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by separating the event from the judgment of the event. The insult is the event. The shame is your judgment. If you remove the judgment, the insult is merely noise. By accepting your flaws, you become anti-fragile, a system that gets stronger when attacked. The shamer has no ammunition left because you have already detonated the mines. The most powerful man is not the one hiding behind armor. He is the one standing naked in the storm saying, "I have nothing to fear." When you reach this state, you stop walking into rooms wondering if you will be liked. You start walking into rooms wondering if you will like them. Sometimes silence is insufficient. Sometimes the situation demands a blade. But you must cut like a surgeon, not a butcher. A butcher hacks and creates a mess. A surgeon makes one precise incision and removes the organ. When you decide to strike back verbally, you must adhere to the rule of brevity. A paragraph is a defense. A sentence is a kill shot. Here are 3 surgical strikes to keep in your arsenal. Strike 1. The who frame. When they insult you, look at them with mild confusion and ask, "Who are you trying to impress right now?" This is devastating because it breaks the fourth wall. It exposes their aggression as a performance. It tells the room, "He is acting and I am the critic." You strip them of their authenticity instantly. Strike 2, the repeat command. They say something nasty. You cup your ear and say, "I'm sorry, say that again." "I didn't catch that." You force them to repeat the insult. Insults are like jokes, they only work on the first delivery. When you force a repetition, the rhythm breaks. It sounds rehearsed. It sounds petty. Usually they will crumble and say, "Never mind." You have used aporia feigned deafness to make them retreat. Strike 3. The validation trap. This is the deadliest. You smile with genuine compassion and say, "I know things are hard for you right now. You don't have to take it out on me." You frame their attack as a cry for help. You pity them. There's nothing more humiliating to a narcissist than being pitied. Gregory Bateson called this a double bind. If they get angry, they prove they are unstable. If they accept your comfort, they submit to your frame. Heads you win, tails they lose. How you sheathe the blade is just as critical as how you swing it. Do not linger over the corpse of their reputation. Once you have deployed the silence, the stare, or the surgical strike, you must execute the final maneuver, the withdrawal. Sun Tzu advised leaving a golden bridge for a retreating enemy to escape, lest they fight to the death. In social warfare, you invert this. You build a bridge to nowhere. You turn your back and speak to someone else, completely withdrawing your attention. Machiavelli understood that in a court of vipers, power is access. When you withdraw your attention, you are removing the most valuable resource in the room. You punish them with your absence. Do not check to see if they are looking. Do not seek validation from the crowd. Show them that the interaction meant so little to you that it has already been deleted from your cache. This is the ultimate insult, to render them forgettable. Why is this necessary? Because we live in a digital coliseum. The world has become a transparent prison where everyone is a judge and executioner. Cancel culture, status games, and online shaming are the new gladiatorial combat. If you lack these defenses, you will be eaten. You will shrink into a gray conformist ghost, terrified of your own shadow. But these tools are not just for survival. They are the foundation of something greater. Most will watch this and return to their victimhood tomorrow. They are addicted to their own weakness. But if you are still listening to the silence between these words, you are ready for the next level. We have covered defensive realism. Now we must pivot to offensive influence. How do you not just stop them from hurting you, but make them desperately want to follow you? That is a darker, deeper rabbit hole. If you are tired of the blue pill lies that tell you to be nice and wait for permission, you have found your tribe. Join the order, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. We are building a sanctuary for the strong in a world that worships the weak. I will see you in the shadows.